Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly fascinating paradox about human intelligence and financial markets. It's one of those things that completely flips conventional wisdom on its head. We all naturally assume that being incredibly smart, having a high IQ, being a brilliant analytical thinker, guarantees success in pretty much any competitive field, right? But what if your own intelligence is actually the very thing holding you back? Today we're exploring the intelligence trap in trading, and trust me, it's going to totally change how you view the markets and your own mind.
Okay, let's dive right into this. If you ask a beginner, who has the biggest advantage in trading? What do you think they're going to say? It's the most logical question, right? And almost everyone will instantly answer the math whizzes, the brilliant analysts, the absolute geniuses.
And honestly, that's a completely reasonable assumption. We naturally picture this highly tuned brain effortlessly crunching complex market data. A person who learns fast, processes massive amounts of information, and thinks purely in logic absolutely should be a better trader. They can spot all those intricate patterns the rest of us miss. It makes total 100% sense on paper.
But here is the massive plot twist that really stood out in the source material we're breaking down today. That is simply not always true. In fact, after years of market observation, the data reveals a pretty shocking reality. Highly intelligent people often face way more difficulty in trading than your average person. Sometimes, the sharper the mind, the deeper the trap.
So, let's look at the first major psychological hurdle. We call this the disease of overthinking. If you're someone who just naturally excels at logic puzzles, your brain is basically a highly tuned problem-solving machine. And that machine feels this relentless, burning need to think deeply about every single detail. It wants the why behind absolutely everything.
But here's the catch. That leads straight to analysis paralysis. Trading is fundamentally a game of probabilities with incomplete information. You never have the full picture, and frankly, nobody actually knows what's going to happen next. With a smart brain, it completely despises that ambiguity. It desperately wants to find the exact cause for every single price twitch, and it needs a flawless logical sequence before it even thinks about taking action.
And this brilliantly illustrates the clash between that smart brain and the market. On one hand, your logical expectation is that prices follow the news perfectly. Terrible company earnings? Prices should drop. Simple. But market reality? It's chaotic. Prices will frequently surge on terrible news and tank when everything looks perfectly rosy. The market is messy, and a lot of the time, it's just completely illogical.
Which leads us to this incredibly powerful insight from the text. Those who seek perfect answers often feel the most frustrated. Imagine having a brain built to solve puzzles, but the puzzle pieces keep changing shape right in front of you. That constant search for a flawless explanation just breeds massive frustration. And ironically, that frustration causes the brilliant trader to tilt, panic, and ultimately make terrible decisions.
All right, that brings us to the second pillar of our breakdown, ego in trading. See, intelligence doesn't just process data, it builds a really protective ego. In a normal job, that ego might win you a debate or give you the confidence to stand your ground. But when cold, hard cash is on the line, that exact same ego becomes incredibly dangerous.
Let me walk you through exactly how this trap snaps shut. Step 1, the smart trader researches a scenario for hours on end. Step 2, they build a remarkably tight, highly logical thesis. They've done the homework so they know they're right. But step 3, when the market inevitably turns against them, they completely refuse to accept being wrong. They literally cannot bring themselves to hit the sell button and cut their losses.
And why does that happen? It's because the ego gets completely attached to the logic, not the trade itself. At this point, taking a loss isn't just about losing a few bucks, it feels like a direct insult to their intellect. Highly analytical traders will grip onto a losing position way too long because they blindly believe the market will eventually have to wake up, realize their logic is superior, and turn back in their favor.
I really want you to just pause for a second and absorb this quote. The market has no obligation to agree with anyone. It doesn't matter how unbelievably smart you are, how many all-nighters you pulled researching, or how bulletproof your logic is. The market just does what the market does. It absolutely does not care about your IQ or your perfectly crafted thesis.
Okay, moving on to the third major trap, the trap of perfection. This is that endless, exhausting itch to optimize every single little detail of the trading process. It's that nagging feeling that the strategy just isn't quite good enough yet.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that these goals, building a better system, finding prettier entries, getting higher win rates, making more accurate models, they sound great, right? Who wouldn't want that? But for the highly intelligent person, this morphs into an obsessive quest. It's a vicious cycle of perfectionism that simply never ends.
The result? A constant battle between tweaking strategies and actually executing plans. Instead of trading a system that is good enough to make a profit, they get stuck in the lab. They're endlessly backtesting and adjusting. They keep waiting on the sidelines for the perfect plan to emerge, and while they're busy hunting for this imaginary perfection, they completely miss the real, practical opportunities passing them by in the live market every single day.
So if raw intelligence, pure logic, and this pursuit of perfection are actually setting traps, what's the way out? Let's pivot here and look at the ultimate solution. We have to ask ourselves, what is genuinely more important in the markets? Adaptability or intelligence?
This brings us to a really profound paradox, brain versus heart and embracing uncertainty. The most successful traders highlighted in our source material aren't the ones with the highest IQs. They aren't math savants. They are simply the ones who can emotionally handle uncertainty. They accept, deep down in their gut, that they'll be wrong sometimes. They fully accept that the market can do absolutely anything, at any time, and they don't try to forcibly control it with their massive brains.
So the crucial point is that they focus entirely on the only things they actually have power over: risk, position size, and your own behavior. That's literally it. A truly successful trader eventually just stops trying to intellectually outsmart the chaos, and instead, they humbly manage those 3 specific elements.
To sum up the core takeaway of this entire explainer, trading is an adaptability contest. It is not an IQ test. The ultimate winner isn't the best analyst with the fanciest algorithms. The winner is the person humble enough to accept the market's randomness and adaptable enough to survive when absolutely nothing makes logical sense. Which leaves us with one final provocative thought to ponder today. The greatest irony of the market is that the smarter you are, the more desperately you want to understand everything. But trading forces us into a corner where we actually have to act regardless of clarity. So I have to ask you, can you let go of your intellectual ego? Can you force yourself to make money even when you can't understand everything? Definitely something to think about next time you look at the charts. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.